The business career is over. The marriage is over. The royal duties, over. The relationship with the royal family, Harry and Charles, it is over.
Do you know, recently we were told, were we not, that Prince William wasn't in a calm place and then he couldn't, relax and all of that sort of stuff. And that happened at the BAFTAs. And when you think about the BAFTAs, which of course he is the president of, what a disaster that's absolutely been. The poor gentleman who's got autism is now being dragged through the coals. But also I blame the BBC simply because they knew what could happen and they placed a microphone near him. Lots of problems along the way.
You ever notice how wild award season gets? Suddenly, every celebrity is out here bragging. I won this, I wore that. It turns into a full-blown parade of ego and designer gowns. These stars seem to need constant praise, don't they? They crave that non-stop reminder that they're special, even though they're already swimming in millions just for showing up to work. It's the same old scene every year. The glitz, the flashing cameras, the polished but fake smiles. That's the world of fame today. And right in the middle of it all sit Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. This is their new playground now. Back when Harry was just a prince under the royal crown, life appeared easy for him. Every time he walked into a room, everyone already knew the script. Laugh at his jokes, nod at his stories, act like he's the funniest guy alive because, well, he was Prince Harry. No one really dared to question him. He coasted through life like that for years. Remember the whole beard drama before his wedding to Meghan Markle, the former cable TV actress? He reportedly refused to shave, saying Meghan wouldn't recognize him without it. What kind of excuse is that? Imagine claiming your fiancé wouldn't even know who you were without your beard. That small disagreement was said to have caused tension with Queen Elizabeth II, and that was only the beginning of Harry insisting on getting his way. Now fast forward, and their so-called royal tours keep making headlines, but often for the wrong reasons. The latest one? A total mess, according to critics. Everything about it seems to scream forced glamour and shaky PR. It's becoming harder to tell where performance ends and real life begins. Some people think it's wild how Harry keeps skating by without major consequences. Others wonder why King Charles III and Prince William haven't stepped in publicly to distance themselves to say, "We don't support this. It has nothing to do with us." Many believe that would clear the air. But then again, the moment they speak out, Harry and Meghan could easily frame it as another victim story. We're being targeted again. It's a cycle people have seen before. Truth is, they appear stuck in their own ongoing drama. Harry doesn't seem able to step back. Another interview rolls around, and suddenly it's another controversy. Take that recent appearance on Channel 4 News in the UK. By many accounts, it turned chaotic. And here's the thing, it wasn't forced on him. He reportedly chose it himself, expecting an easy conversation. Instead, it felt like a train wreck unfolding live. He didn't seem fully prepared for the background details or the direction of the questions, and it showed. You could read it on his face. Nervous laughs, awkward pauses, fumbling over words. At one point, he even glanced at the interviewer as if silently asking for help. But no one stepped in. For someone so used to having things go his way, the shift was obvious when the moment slipped out of his control. He stumbled, laughed nervously, and tried to smooth over the tension, but the discomfort lingered. Watching it felt uneasy for viewers. By the end, he didn't look confident or protected by status. He looked worn down, almost defeated. Like reality had finally caught up with the carefully managed image. Word is he even shut off his phone afterward, unable to face the backlash. And Meghan, reportedly staring at the fallout, realizing the influence she once believed Harry carried might be slipping faster than expected. That royal shield doesn't look so strong anymore. Now let me break it down. Morning, my friend. Always good to see you. Thanks for dropping in. Even though it's another gloomy, rain-soaked day here in the UK, the weather's miserable, but we push through, don't we? And yes, I've mostly stayed away from those chocolate orange treats I mentioned before. Mostly. My real weakness kicks in right after Easter, when the shops start slashing prices. First 85, then 45, then suddenly 20. It feels like they're daring me to stockpile them in the freezer. I swear one day I'll open a drawer and it'll be stacked to the top. And no, this isn't an ad. I'm not being paid to say it. It's just that when you enjoy something, you share it. And the same goes the other way. If something's terrible, you say that too. I recently bought a tin of chopped tomatoes. Absolutely awful. No sweetness, no flavor, just bland mush. I don't know what they changed, but it tasted like disappointment sealed in metal. I remember thinking, never again. And honestly, that's how some people are beginning to feel about Prince Harry. A kind of buyer's remorse. At first, he was seen as a relatable royal, the charming rebel. But now, many feel like what they signed up for isn't what they got. The shine is fading. The fairy tale feels stale. Harry's been making moves again, this time appearing in the Middle East with Meghan Markle, the former cable TV actress who now seems to be channeling a full humanitarian glam image. The poses, the expressions, the "I'm here to change the world" energy. It was all there, but something felt off. Reports suggested the visit lacked structure. No clear schedule, no visible coordination, just awkward moments. Take the hospital visit, for example. Meghan reportedly didn't grasp why standing right beside a patient's bed for photos might raise concerns. It's not about optics alone, it's about sensitivity. And if her team didn't brief her properly, that's a bigger issue. Every move seems to spark backlash. If she steps forward for the cameras, critics call it staged. If she hangs back, they say she's disengaged. It becomes a no-win scenario, especially if the people advising them aren't experienced with high-level royal-style diplomacy. Then there's the buzz about Prince Harry being frustrated after an apparent snub from the Jordanian royal family. Sources claim there was irritation over how the visit or rumored drop-in was handled. Allegedly, there wasn't even formal notice given, supposedly due to security concerns. But some observers interpret it differently, suggesting it felt less like protocol and more like quiet distancing. What's striking is that despite all this, Harry and Meghan still move as if the world is tracking every detail. Meghan has been traveling frequently. Paris Fashion Week one moment, Broadway's Gypsy the next, maintaining a high-profile presence. Meanwhile, critics argue that much of their personal life is already public knowledge. Where they live, what they wear, how they operate, it's all discussed openly. The larger issue isn't just headlines or awkward appearances. It's perception. Once the image begins to crack, every move gets magnified. And in today's media environment, where narrative control is everything, even a single uncomfortable interview or unstructured visit can shift the tone dramatically. Whether fair or not, the spotlight they chose doesn't dim easily. And it certainly doesn't forgive quickly. It's starting to look like they're trying to hold on to a spotlight that's slowly dimming. And maybe they don't even see it happening. Here's where things reportedly became more complicated. Prince Harry was said to be genuinely surprised by the apparent rejection. According to circulating accounts, his team had sent last-minute messages suggesting a possible visit. But the Jordanian royal household did not engage. From a diplomatic standpoint, that's not unusual. Unofficial appearances without formal coordination can create protocol issues, especially when it involves members connected to the British monarchy. Some observers suggest the Jordanian side was simply being respectful toward King Charles III and the broader structure of the British royal family. Others argue it's also about status. Harry and Meghan are no longer working royals. They don't represent the crown in an official capacity. That distinction matters on the global stage. High-level visits typically involve government coordination, security planning, and diplomatic clearance. If, as insiders claim, there was no formal notice or structured agenda, it makes sense that the host would avoid anything that could be interpreted as political or symbolic alignment. That's not personal, it's protocol. From another angle, critics frame it differently. Two high-profile public figures arriving and expecting ceremonial acknowledgement without the institutional backing that once defined their roles. For a country like Jordan, maintaining strong relations with the United Kingdom would naturally take priority over facilitating an unofficial drop-in. Diplomacy isn't about headlines, it's about long-term relationships. Reports also suggest disappointment on the Sussex side. If expectations were higher than the reception they received, that can bruise anyone's pride. But there's an interesting contrast people point out. Imagine if unannounced guests appeared at Harry and Meghan's Montecito home. Security protocols would activate immediately. Background checks, controlled access, carefully managed optics. That comparison fuels the argument critics make, that there's a desire for royal-level recognition without the formal royal responsibilities that once came with it. Behind the scenes, speculation continues about tension. Anonymous sources often claim disagreements, late-night strategy sessions, publicists scrambling to reshape narratives. Whether those claims are exaggerated or not, one thing is clear. Every trip, every appearance now carries amplified scrutiny. What may have once been viewed as global influence is now measured against their changed status. Titles still exist, but institutional power does not operate the same way outside palace structures. Meanwhile, Meghan maintains a polished public image, designer outfits, carefully staged appearances, confident smiles. But even supportive audiences are beginning to ask questions about consistency, messaging, and long-term direction. The modern royal identity they once promoted doesn't carry the same novelty it did a few years ago. Repetition dulls impact. Some commentators argue that had they navigated their transition differently, fewer public confrontations, more defined humanitarian focus, clearer boundaries, the narrative might feel stronger today. Instead, each attempt to regain control of the story sometimes creates more debate. In contrast, the senior royal family maintains a steady silence, which often reads as composure. After the reported snub in Jordan, one broader takeaway stands out. Influence in international circles isn't automatic. It's structured, negotiated, and rooted in official roles. Without that framework, red carpets aren't guaranteed. Whether this moment becomes a turning point or just another headline depends entirely on how the next chapter is handled.
For many people, you might say, of course, that Meghan Markle is a difficult person, right? And the problem that you have with that is, clearly they don't see difficulties, do they, right? As far as she's concerned, the world is against her, the world is wrong, and consequently, whatever she says and whatever she's doing has to be right.
Behind closed doors, rumors suggest Meghan still believes there's a comeback moment ahead. A dramatic return where they reclaim the spotlight and remind everyone why the world once couldn't stop watching. But right now, critics argue that the star power which once felt unstoppable appears to be fading. Prince Harry, caught between pride and mounting pressure, is said to be confronting a reality he may not have anticipated. Life outside the royal institution doesn't automatically come with prestige or protection. The question circulating in media circles is simple. What's next for Prince Harry and Meghan Markle? Their post-royal chapter in Hollywood hasn't unfolded exactly as many expected. The much-publicized Netflix partnership has grown quieter, and the Spotify deal officially ended in 2023. Even their charitable initiatives struggle to generate the kind of global headlines they once commanded. To some observers, each public move now feels more strategic than organic, less about momentum and more about course correction. There's speculation that Harry has been reflecting on what he left behind. Palace life offered structure, defined roles, and institutional backing. Freedom brought independence, but also exposure. Without formal royal status, influence depends entirely on public reception and consistent delivery. Building global credibility without the monarchy's framework is undeniably more complex. Meanwhile, Meghan appears focused on reinvention. Fashion-forward appearances, curated interviews, and polished public messaging suggest an effort to position herself as both a style authority and humanitarian advocate. Yet some critics argue the branding feels calculated rather than natural, as if the audience is more skeptical than before. In Hollywood, attention cycles move quickly. The once constant A-list associations have reportedly become less visible, and red carpet invitations seem fewer. Whether that's perception or reality, the optics fuel discussion. There are whispers that brands view the couple as high-profile but polarizing, valuable in reach, yet unpredictable in reception. In today's corporate climate, stability matters. Controversy, even when it generates clicks, can complicate partnerships. Behind the scenes, the pressure to maintain relevance in an industry driven by novelty must be intense. The narrative they once presented, stepping away, finding peace, building a modern global platform, now faces heavier scrutiny. Every public appearance invites analysis. Every silence sparks speculation. And the quiet approach from Buckingham Palace contrasts sharply with the Sussex strategy. The monarchy plays a long institutional game. Harry and Meghan operate in a fast-moving media arena. Reports also suggest Harry feels increasingly isolated from his former royal circle. Relationships that once seemed automatic now require careful navigation. When you leave a centuries-old system, reintegration isn't simple. The distance can feel larger over time. At the same moment, Meghan is reportedly planning fresh ventures, new media concepts, possible documentaries, perhaps even lifestyle branding. Reinvention is common in Hollywood. The challenge lies in execution and timing. Whether they stage a comeback or a pivot entirely depends on clarity of direction. Influence outside the palace is possible, but it requires consistency, restraint, and a strong value proposition. The next chapter will determine whether this phase becomes a temporary dip or a lasting redefinition of who they are in the public eye. She's clearly not giving up on being seen as influential, but according to ongoing speculation, the strain between them is becoming harder to disguise. When cameras flash, it's polished smiles and coordinated glamour. Behind the scene, however, insiders often describe tension. Two ambitious people navigating very different visions under the same roof. The more they attempt to recalibrate their public image, critics argue, the more obvious the strategy becomes. Carefully staged appearances, high-profile speeches about authenticity, designer wardrobes against the backdrop of a multi-million-dollar estate. It creates a contrast some audiences struggle to reconcile. Public fatigue is real in the modern media cycle. People tend to respond to consistency and clarity. When messaging feels repetitive or overly curated, support can erode. Observers say Prince Harry appears more subdued in recent appearances, less carefree than during his years as a relatable royal figure within the monarchy. Whether that perception is fair or not, it fuels the broader narrative that their brand leans heavily on past identity rather than present momentum. What once felt like bold independence is now framed by critics as an ongoing attempt to preserve relevance. Meanwhile, the institution they left, the British royal family, continues operating with quiet continuity, which only sharpens the contrast. Now comes a more delicate rumor. Talk of Harry possibly exploring a softer reconnection with royal life. Not a formal return, but subtle outreach. Rebuilding communication lines, reconnecting with longtime aides or trusted friends who still move within palace circles. There's speculation he misses the structure and defined purpose that royal duty once provided. Institutional life can be restrictive, but it also offers clarity. Outside that framework, identity must be self-constructed, and that can feel unsteady. Reports often mention that he has missed family gatherings and milestone events. Distance over time can deepen emotional gaps. King Charles III is widely understood to care deeply for his son, but trust, after interviews, documentaries, and public revelations, becomes more complex. Rebuilding it would likely require patience and discretion on all sides. For Meghan, a return to any version of palace structure may not align with the life she has built in California. Her network, professional relationships, and creative ambitions exist far from royal hierarchy. The British monarchy operates within strict protocols and long-standing traditions. Reintegration into that system would involve compromise. That difference in long-term vision could naturally create friction. This leaves them at a crossroads. Harry, potentially torn between institutional belonging and personal independence. Meghan, focused on carving out a self-directed global platform. The divergence in priorities, if it exists, would be difficult to ignore. Publicly, unity is the message. Privately, speculation suggests complexity. The central question remains: does Harry attempt a gradual reconciliation with royal life, or does he fully commit to building influence entirely outside it? The royal family continues forward with measured silence and tradition. Harry, by contrast, operates in a world driven by commentary and reaction. Standing between those two realities would test anyone's resolve. Whether this moment becomes a turning point or simply another chapter depends on what they choose next and how quietly or publicly they choose to move. Endless press, endless scrutiny, endless second-guessing. It can feel from the outside like trading one confined system for another, except this one is built on celebrity culture and public reaction. In recent interviews, some viewers have pointed to Prince Harry's more subdued expressions and longer pauses when difficult topics arise. Whether that reflects pressure or simply maturity is open to interpretation, but the perception of heaviness has fueled ongoing commentary. There are also reports suggesting he has made quiet attempts to reopen lines of communication back home, though any response from palace circles is described as measured and formal. Institutions like Buckingham Palace tend to prioritize stability and continuity over emotion, protecting the monarchy as a whole rather than responding to personal narratives. Meanwhile, Meghan is often seen maintaining composure, continuing public projects, appearances, and that polished California presence. Yet media analysts note a shift in tone around coverage. The intense fascination that once followed their every move has cooled. In today's fast-moving news cycle, attention is fleeting. Maintaining cultural momentum requires constant reinvention, and even then, public interest can drift. Critics argue that recent outings feel highly strategic, designed to reignite buzz. Supporters would counter that visibility is simply part of modern public life. The contrast is striking. A couple who once framed their departure as transformational now navigating a far more complicated reality. Harry appears positioned between two worlds: the royal institution that has moved forward without public engagement on the matter, and Hollywood circles that operate on relevance and trend cycles. Neither space functions the way it once did for him. That in-between position can look isolating. Media tone has undeniably shifted. Early sympathetic coverage has evolved into sharper analysis, with each appearance dissected across platforms. Public figures inevitably face that pendulum. Reports suggest both are cautious about messaging. When to speak, when to step back, who to trust. The promise of a clean break has proven more turbulent than expected. Sources close to Harry describe him as more reflective lately, less reactive. Some interpret that as growth. Others see uncertainty. Fame without clearly defined institutional purpose can feel abstract. Meanwhile, Meghan continues advancing plans, calls appearances development discussions, focus on sustaining their brand identity. But even supporters acknowledge that sustaining impact year after year is difficult. Public charisma can appear different under pressure. Confidence can look rehearsed when scrutiny intensifies. The Jordan trip controversy amplified that tension. What was intended, according to supporters, as a humanitarian-focused visit became overshadowed by questions of coordination and optics. Instead of reinforcing global influence, it sparked debate. Behind the scenes, unnamed sources describe frustration, blame directed at advisors, media framing logistical missteps. That's common when expectations and outcomes diverge. Ultimately, the situation reflects a broader truth about modern fame. Reinvention is possible but fragile. Influence outside structured institutions requires long-term consistency, strategic restraint, and public trust. Whether this chapter becomes a temporary setback or a defining turning point depends less on headlines and more on disciplined, deliberate next steps. There's a certain irony in how their stated mission, supporting causes, raising awareness, creating impact, often gets overshadowed by controversy surrounding logistics and optics. When intention and execution don't align, headlines tend to focus on the missteps rather than the message. After the Jordan trip, that dynamic appeared to intensify. Media coverage centered less on humanitarian themes and more on questions of planning, coordination, and reception. In the days that followed, commentary suggested mounting frustration within their circle. Public relations efforts reportedly tried to reframe the visit as misunderstood outreach. But once a narrative gains traction, reversing it becomes difficult. Analysts repeatedly highlighted the same themes: unclear scheduling, awkward optics, and a perception of diplomatic distance. Whether fair or exaggerated, those impressions shaped the conversation. According to unnamed sources, Prince Harry was deeply disappointed by how events unfolded. The stated goal, they claim, was to spotlight compassion and service. Instead, the coverage portrayed confusion and rejection. That disconnect can be particularly frustrating for public figures who believe their motives were sincere. Meghan, for her part, was said to be equally upset that the focus shifted away from the intended cause and toward controversy. From her perspective, a humanitarian initiative became another reputational setback. Behind closed doors, reports describe strategy meetings and urgent calls, teams reassessing timing, partnerships, and communication approaches. Some commentators have argued that greater coordination with local organizations or official channels might have changed the outcome. In high-level international settings, patience and groundwork are critical. Fast visibility without deep infrastructure can backfire. One broader issue is expectation. When you're associated historically with one of the world's most recognized institutions, there's an assumption of influence that may not translate outside formal roles. That tension appears to be at the heart of the criticism. Silence from other royal households, particularly in diplomatic contexts, is rarely emotional. It's institutional, and institutions move deliberately. Public response also reflects fatigue. When transparency is part of brand identity, sudden quiet can feel noticeable. After the trip, communication was minimal. Formal statements rather than personal reflections. For some observers, that restraint seemed strategic. For others, it felt inconsistent with past messaging. As for Prince Harry, speculation suggests the moment may have carried a personal sting. Growing up in an environment where access and acknowledgement were automatic creates a certain baseline expectation. When that shifts, it can feel jarring. In celebrity culture, influence is fluid. Attention cycles change quickly. What once felt guaranteed becomes negotiable. Ultimately, the larger lesson is one many public figures encounter. Good intentions don't automatically shield against criticism. Planning, perception, and institutional alignment matter just as much as motive. The Jordan episode may not define their entire trajectory, but it underscores how fragile reputation can be. When cameras dim and applause fades, what remains is credibility. Fame fluctuates. Reputation accumulates. Their next steps, measured, strategic, and perhaps quieter, will determine whether this phase becomes a setback or a pivot.